Hello and welcome to Super Rugby Round 15 review brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for predictions and opinion. But today I get to take a back seat because I hand over the reins to Stephen and Shane, who will be taking you through all of the games. I'll be with you in the live chat, so do tap and type away, something like that. Anyway, before I tongue tie myself anymore, Steve, take it away.
Oh, what a way to start. Tap and type your way, everyone. Get into it. Get tapping and typing. Welcome along to the Round 15 review of Super Rugby. And welcome back to Shane. Missed him last week, so hopefully he's all fired up and ready to go for some action. And we start off quite nicely for you, Shane, as well, because the first game of the weekend was your Reds in action up against the Chiefs. So your Reds on the road, the Chiefs at home. And the game started off with both sides having some early tries scrubbed out for them, some I'd call dodgy TMO/referee combinations, and the frustrations in the game were rolling nice and early, so that was always a good way to start. It was the Chiefs, though, that struck first, and it was Suakula, a new man to a lot of people around the world, finding a boatload of space out wide, and a big giant galloped his way with a couple of sad little Reds dangling off the back of his shirt tails to score the opening try, and it was a stunning way to start off the weekend as well. The big Chiefs forwards tried their hand at some circus tricks right on the Reds line, somehow not knocking the ball on, and it luckily fell into the hands of Moley, who extended the Chiefs' lead up a couple of tries now. The Chiefs doing very, very well against the Reds. Bryce Higgity added a couple of penalties for the Reds, but that was not much on the way for them to celebrate. The recently highly debated forward pass law was brought into question for another weekend as the Chiefs got some rapid wide ball going just before halftime with a strong finish to Nanai Satoro. The big question was the pass, and, the Chiefs were happy to take luck for a rare time on this one as they got away with it, and they went to the break leading the Reds 19 points to 6. The game turned into a bit of an arm wrestle in the second half, but the Reds, they had to be the next to score to stay in the game. They did. They had a long period of possession, and phase after phase inside the Reds 22, they finally managed to bully their way over. And there's only one bully that wears red, and that is Tupou, of course. No one else was going to score that try. The Reds absolutely dominated the final 10-15 minutes of the game. They thrashed away at the lines, but the Chiefs' defense was amazing, outstanding, fantastic. And they kicked the ball clear every time they got close to the Reds, and then they'd come straight back at the Chiefs' defense. Weathering storm after storm, it was like a hurricane out there. The Chiefs did very well to hang on right to the bitter end. The final score, 19 points to 13. An amazing finish to the game, Shane. But how about this tackle count? Chiefs, 242 tackles to the Reds with just 85.
Well, we know who's going to enjoy the recovery session the next morning a little bit more in the pool. Well done to the Chiefs. They tackled their life out. And as I looked at the highlights coming back from the Great Outback, I noticed that the Reds never gave up. And they very, very nearly got that ball over the line after the full-time siren. So... But, falling short again against New Zealand opposition is something can't afford to really do, particularly in this World Cup year. But I've got to say they didn't give up and they made the Chiefs work for it. So good to see a bit of competition there from the Reds and in what I think was really a boring game to start off a Friday night.
What's good for the Reds, though, is they picked up the bonus point. So they got finished 6. So that's another point against New Zealand side. They've got to take that. But it was a golden chance for them, wasn't it, to get a victory against New Zealand team. And what was interesting, I found, about this game is there's an uncharacteristic amount of penalties against the Chiefs. So normally a pretty good team when it comes to conceding penalties. But none more than anything you can say was their defence. Their goal line defence, that last 15 minutes was just unbelievable. And what shocked me even more, and I found out why this happened, that there was no yellow cards, but I know why. It's because the referee was dressed as a yellow card. So he didn't feel tempted to pull them out of his pocket. So there we go. I want every referee now for the rest of Super Rugby to be dressed in yellow. Nothing else. One big yellow card. And then we'll have some, hopefully not so defensively, 12 on 13s like we see from Angus Gardner happening for the rest of the competition. But that was the Reds falling down to the Chiefs 19-13 to kick off our weekend. We will move on. The second game of the weekend was the Brumbies versus the Bulls. And it took the Brumbies a little while. They had to slowly chip away at the Bulls' defence for a long, long time before they finally got any chances. An overlap out wide, and it was a number one try for Tavita Kurandrani. You can tell by that straight away. Kurandrani had a pretty good night. And from that point on, the Bulls set up building the first small village of the weekend, and they set it in the Brumbies 2022, scrum on scrum, penalty on scrum, on top of another penalty. And eventually we got our first card of the weekend, Piper sending away Cusack after the Bulls finally pushed their way through and grabbed their opening try of the competition, of the weekend, of the game. What am I talking about? The Rolling Maul's been under question, though, as it seems to have got lost in the build-up to that try, but Liebenberg pounced on it as it fell to the ground. And what do they say? You play the whistle, the ref gives it, and the Bulls are happy to run away at that point. Almost at the halftime mark, the Brumbies scored a cracking try from the line-out maul. They surprised everyone by going to the back line. And it was that man again. Yes, Tavita Kurandrani cuts a terrific line back on itself and blasts straight through at lightning speed too. He played an amazing game. Great speed, great power. Liliafano converts. The Brumbies took the lead back. 12 points to 10 was a score at halftime. The Brumbies with a slender one at the break. Just 4 minutes into the second half, and it was a set play again from the Brumbies that teared the Bulls apart. Spate slicing through like Kurandrani did just earlier. The Bulls' defence at set piece was pretty poor, and they were getting torn apart from it as well. The Brumbies got a hero, and it was in Kurandrani once again who grabbed his first ever Super Rugby hat-trick as the Brumbies cashed in on multiple Bulls errors. The defence was getting weaker as the Brumbies got more and more control of the match, and the game petered out a bit, I think, in the last final 20 minutes. The Bulls couldn't really, they didn't really do anything. They couldn't catch a cold out there. And the Brumbies, they were happy to play territory, pin the Bulls back, and just close that game out to a 22-10 win. The Brumbies getting a big win there over the Bulls, Shane.
Yep, and all 5 points. They took the bones poured out of that. And I enjoyed watching the replay of this one, and particularly watching those Brumbies forwards close the game out. But certainly the Colts had been running in all sorts of directions. Now they've found a straight direction to run into, and through the gate they went. And unlike the Bulls, forgot to lock the horns in. But look, I've got to hand it to the Brumbies, and particularly to Tavita Kurandrani. He said, I want that 13-goal jumper. I haven't heard any player say they want a goal jumper this year. So for the first time, someone's put their hand up. and he deserved his 3 tries as well. Good to see Spate get a lot of space out wide. The Bull there too. I thought the Bulls forwards weren't too bad, to be honest with you. They had a decent fair dinkum crack until half-time, and it just petered away at the end, and too little too late, and well done to the Brumbies. Locked in 5 points in the bank.
I think what surprised a lot of people about that too is the Brumbies' use of that back line. A team that's pretty much been locked down as that rolling maul, can't do anything else, don't have a back line to really work with. You spoke of those two guys, Spate and Kurandrani. They were the backbone of that Australian backline not long ago, a few years ago, and they've really been missing recently. So it's great to see those guys really stepping it up for the Brumbies especially, and hopefully for Australia's sake, they can convert that through the rest of the season as well. And hopefully we might see a competitive Wallabies team later on in the year. But the Brumbies, that's great for them, because you look at the table, they sit now top of the Australian Conference, is really getting tight up there with the Rebels only 1 point behind them, and they were the next team in action. They're up against the Sunwolves, and I mean, this really hardly involves the Sunwolves at all, because this was just all Rebels all day and all night. Right from the start, the Rebels are offloading the ball all over the place. They were too hot for the Sunwolves straight away, and really, it took 13 minutes, but they could have scored plenty more right from the start. Cottrell getting the first try, and it went through many hands. The support play was too much for the Sunwolves straight away. The dominance was showing right from that, and it was a sharp Hodge break that opened up a massive amount of space, and Koroibete finishing in the corner. Massaray were trying desperately to stop him, but Koroibete coming on quite nicely as well. We're talking about outside back players for Australia doing very nicely. Koroibete is getting some form for the Rebels. We got a second yellow card of the weekend. Matt Phillip was sent for 10 as the Sunwolves put a little bit of pressure on the Rebels line, but They didn't make anything of it, and the 10-minute period eventually come back to help the Rebels. A man down, and they still created chances. Cooper firing a big cutout pass to their man again, Corabetti, who was somehow, despite his team being a man short, unmarked out wide, and his speed raced away to score another try for the Rebels. 3 unanswered tries in the first half, 19-0. It wasn't looking good for the Sunwolves, who have really been suffering a bit from the donuts in the last few weeks of the competition. A hugely butchered scrum set play going completely pear-shaped opened up another massive opportunity for the Rebels. The ball was on the ground. Maddox picked it up, and we know Maddox has got wheels. He just burnt the defence and ran in for their 4th try of the night. Finally, the Sunwolves got something to enjoy. Hodge trying to clear his 22, gets his kick charge down in a tidy little bounce right in front of the line. Couldn't ask for any better, and the Sunwolves crowd come alive. It took an hour, but they finally got themselves that try. The Rebels, though, they quickly turned it back into dominance for them. The scrum laying the platform for yet another try, powering forward, one phase off the back. Ruru spots a little hole and snipes short himself to score. And then the Sunwolves got more pain on them as well. Maddox running a brilliant line, split the defence in half, and he was in again for another try. 80 minutes was up. It wasn't all over just yet. One last point for the Rebels, a penalty into the corner. They decided they'll ever go up the rolling maul, and they did. Trucked it over, got the 50 up, and that one went to returning from injury as well. Ulysses back from a pretty long layoff, so good to see him back for the Rebels, but 52-7. Shane, goodness me, what's happened to the Sunwolves? They got absolutely thrashed, but at least they didn't get the donut.
No, they didn't. Homer collected a few on the way by to make sure that he might as well have been scoring that try to make sure he collected the donuts. But, what was interesting about this was it's perhaps the Rebels' best performance of the season. Well, it is. Now, the test will be, do they falter like they have in years past in the last few rounds after, getting so close in that conference table? That's a question for this upcoming week. But they were clinical. Quade Cooper played his best game of the year. And interesting to note, Robbie Deans was in commentary when we talk about toxicity levels. I've seen a lot more in the water I drink in terms of Quade and Robbie, and that's a joke. I drink good water. But, that's a very good performance. The Rebels' backs were on show this time, and the forwards played their role as well as they could. It's good to see players like Jordan Ulysses back from a long-term injury, and it's also good to see Corabetti hit some form. He played well, 5 line breaks, 159 metres, 11 runs, and 2 tries. And it was good to see Cooper throw the cutout balls and throw the passes that we know he can do and he can play, and he has been doing for, that he can do rather than rocks and diamonds.
Indeed, good for the Rebels, though. Bad news overall for the poor old Sunwolves, who go down in a big way yet again in 2019. That does bring us, though, for the halftime team talk. We're going to throw everything back at Paul. He's got some messages. What's coming up this week on the channel, Paul?
So welcome to the halftime team talk. This week we've got the Hash Rugby chat tomorrow night, where we'll be talking about is Phil Kearns right? Should the Jaguares be thrown down to Super Rugby because they're too good for Australian teams? We'll have the All Blacks edition on Wednesday night, and then we'll be previewing all the action on Thursday evening as well. And then this coming weekend on Saturday, if you're in Hamilton, come down to the Zone Sports Bar. Myself and Minty Meads, who is the radio sports commentator for Waikato, will be in the Zone Sports Bar for the Chiefs versus the Crusaders, because they're taking their home game away to the Fiji. And so come and join Minty and myself in the Zone Sports Bar. We'll be giving you a bit of a talk before the game as to what to expect, and then also half-time and full-time reviews as well. So come and say hi to me. Not many people came and said hi to me about my birthday last week. I'm very disappointed. So please come and say hi to me this time.
Alrighty, moving right along to what a lot of people were talking to be the matchup of the weekend. It was the Crusaders versus the Blues. Now, Blues fans were talking their hopes up of this one, but not many other people around the globe really had much hope for them going into this clash versus the Crusaders. And really, it went much like probably expected, apart from the scoreboard. The Crusaders were really all over the Blues from the early stages, and they took any points they could with any chances they could, penalties being the order of the day for the home team. It did take a while, but the Crusaders did finally get some big bicky points. Their first 5-pointer and only 5-pointer of the first half going to number 9, Bryn Hall, after one of many Richie Mo'unga kicks across field into space, over the top, everywhere he went, and this one resulted nicely. Crotty swooped it in, and Hall was the man over to go in for the try, and that left a 13-0 lead to the Crusaders midway through the half, and things didn't get much better for the Blues the rest of that half, and it was just 3 by Plummer. Yeah, just 3. 3 points, 1 shot at goal. That gave something for the Blues to celebrate. That was a halftime score, 13 points to 3. The Crusaders in control in the game, but not so much on the scoreboard. One try definitely changed that one. The second half was marred by a terrible call by the ref against Crusaders. Mo'unga gunning for the corner, and sure to score this one before being wiped out. I think, personally, watching this one, around the neck, into touch, not even a penalty given for this one, which was a question mark I had over this big game. Previously, we've seen very similar things being yellow cards and penalty tries most of this season. So the interpretation of what we're seeing about these rules really is being thrown up in the air, and that wasn't the only one in this match that had that question mark on it. More penalties were exchanged throughout the two sides, and it crept up slowly to 16 points to 6, very slowly. The Crusaders still with the lead. Then the Blues, for the first time, got some phases inside the Crusaders 22. Quick hands from right to left, and Ioane runs in the corner to score, and here we go again. Consistency with the referees called. This one, they went and had a look at the Timo. Did he place it down properly? If you've seen it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But this one was strikingly similar to what we've seen in the Chiefs game at the start of the weekend, when Nano Satoro was disallowed his try, when he did pretty much exactly the same thing, and it was disallowed. This one from Ioane wasn't let away with, and the referee deemed that was okay. So I'm struggling with consistency on that one as well. It was 16-11. The Crusaders had just a 5-point lead, but the penalties kept hurting the Blues as the Crusaders chipped on through the game, getting their lead up to 19 points to 11, which was the full-time score. An interesting game, a contentious game, that one, Shane. Blues probably on scoreboard look better than they actually were in the game.
Yeah, look, I don't discredit their effort. I think that, they could have turned up and got ready for a flogging. But thankfully, with the improvement, and there has been an improvement under Leon McDonald this year with the Blues, that they gave it a good go for the 80, and it wasn't quite good enough against a well-rounded Crusaders side, but there could have been more to this game. There probably wasn't the excitement factor, certainly a bit of contentiousness there in a few decisions that were made, but it's actually nice to see some contentious decision made against the New Zealand side. Even if they were both playing each other. I take nothing more or nothing less out of the game than the Blues. Good on them for having a crack. The Crusaders keep marching on their merry way.
Yes, indeed they do, and they are really marching on quite substantially now. We look at the table every week, and I mean, you got a 13-point lead over the Hurricanes in the New Zealand Conference. I mean, it's done and dusted. For the old Crusaders, they just like you say, marching on through till it gets to the big dance, which obviously is when the playoffs get started later on. A few weeks away, just yet though. Don't get too excited. We'll move on to over the ditch, Australia, Waratahs, Jaguares. This one was interesting because the Jaguares showed really good form when they've been in New Zealand, and I thought this could be a game where they actually show a little bit more of that against the Australian oppositions. But we've seen 25 minutes of a pretty painful stalemate rugby between the two sides before we finally got some finishing by the Jaguares. They were exploiting the Waratahs' pendulum defence at the back three. Didn't quite work out how they were anticipating it to. De La Fuente spotted it, sliding a little kick through, which they didn't have cover for, and he found open space. The speed of Mojano, too hot, too fast. The guy is lightning. And the constant Jaguares attack finally began telling from that. And that was the only try of the first half. The teams exchanging penalties to round out the half from there. 10 points to 3. It was the Jaguares with the first half lead. into the second half, though, and things started to heat up here. The Waratahs defence was found extremely wanting. Some horrifically soft defence from Adam Ashley Cooper and Curtly Beale. On that man again was Jano, who twinkle toes down the touchline. He had no right to get through that space, and he put it way out to 17 points to 3. The Jaguares were cruising. The Waratahs have been guilty of throwing away too many chances in this game. The line-out maul on their side, they start to get a little bit of go forward. They were playing forward through the Jaguares defence, and they were illegally stopped in the end by Matera, which the referee gave a penalty try to, and a special helping of a yellow card to go with it as well for the flanker. A game-changing moment possible right there. The scoreline 10 points to 17. The Jaguares still in the lead, but a man down could certainly change the game. And the Waratahs certainly did take toll of that yellow card period. They stacked the 22 for pretty much the whole 10 minutes. They were a man down. And right near the end, they managed to get themselves some cookies for their work. The impressive Curtis Ronda, more space out wide. And I think the one man on the Waratahs jersey had definitely deserved a try. The conversion was astray, and the Jaguares held a slender 17-15 lead. The Waratahs, though, they are their own worst enemy at times, and for the rest of this match, that was certainly the case. Knocking on too many chances, unable to turn that second half dominance into points, and the Jaguares rubbed salt into the wound, getting a late penalty after 80 minutes to deny them what could have been a crucial bonus point in a pretty tight Australian conference. 23-15, the Jaguares doing it pretty well in Australia, Shane.
They did, and they deserved their win. I've always said that when they win, they deserve it because they work for it, and they work hard, and they work as a team. And I like this team. And Phil Kearns, please shut up. This side deserves to be in Super Rugby. Don't even go there with that conversation, my son. And now, the Waratahs. You would think, as an Australian, that I would have some sympathy for the Waratahs. But I don't. You would think that I would say that with the talent they got, they could be world beaters. Well, they got beaten by the Argentinian side, so I don't think that they can even consider themselves the champions of Australia any longer. This side really needs to go back to high school and pay attention in class, because this side continues to make the same mistakes, the same selection policy mistakes, and the same players that just can't get the job done for them week in, week out. There is no sympathy. The Jaguares played beautifully. They played the forward game. They got some great backs. And I hope they go on to win the South African Conference and prove a real point, because people like Phil Kearns, who was a great Wallaby, loved watching him play. As a commentator, he has become nothing but a joke and a meme. And I really think that, if you have sides that beat the Tars, they deserve to win, and the Tars deserve to lose.
Well said. I agree.
The Dingoes were howling,
the
mate.
Jaguares win. What was that?
The Dingoes were howling, I tell you. They weren't happy.
What was also great is they are now top of the table as well, the Jaguares in South Africa. 3-point lead over the Sharks, which is very, very tasty for them. Probably the biggest lead anyone's had in the South African division this season. That's how close it's been. But yeah, they're a great side, great team. They've taken time, they've molded brilliantly, and they are now reaping the rewards. It's like the Lions 7 years ago when they started to build that team up. You see it over time. It happens, and you got to give them credit. They're a really good side, and like you say, the Waratahs definitely their own worst enemy, and they didn't deserve to win that game at all. Even how close they got, no chance at all. We will move on though. The Stormers were at home against the Highlanders, another South African team who are fighting, and they're fighting pretty well too, at the foot of the table. But when you're only 6 points behind the team at the top, you know how close that division is. The Stormers started though with a flying chip and chase try, which wasn't a try, to Sinatla, ruled out for offside. But how good of a start would that been for the home team. It was a really bad sign for the visitors, the Highlanders. When Sinatla scorches away like this and he's on song, he could be really dangerous. It would take 20 minutes, though, for the first try, and it was Sinatla who got it, unsurprisingly, bursting through some weak defence, and like he's done all season, in support was Yankees tussling over with Aaron Smith, the two little men having a bit of a battle, but the first try was scored by the Stormers' number 9. The Highlanders were really struggling to get into this game, and it was made worse when Matt Fettis was sent off with a yellow card, flipping Delendi on his head, and that at least is staying consistent. He was marched pretty quickly for that one. With that, then, the Stormers took control, and we've seen the second Khaleesi special in 2 weeks. Man, this guy is something else. From the line out, smashing that flat ball at such speed and power. He is just near unstoppable in fantastic form, and he twirled and twinkled and shimmied and did everything he could to get himself over that line. And to score at halftime, 17 points to 3, the Highlanders definitely looked in trouble on the road. The Stormers were truly in control of the game. Into the second half, the Highlanders needed to score pretty much straight away to keep their hopes of winning this one alive. It was that man, Sinatla, who had another disallowed try, which kind of gave the Highlanders a bit of a lifeline. The most confusing passenger play you've probably ever all seen. Go and watch the start of the second half if you're not sure what I'm talking about. No one had a clue what was going on. If you want to see 31 men standing on a field scratching their head, that's what that was like just then. Sinatla thought he had scored another one, but it was not allowed. They did get the needed try, though. The Highlanders, a strong run from Frizzell, some lightning recycled ball, and Tompkinson crashed over to breathe some life into the Highlanders. But that brief happiness was quickly squashed by the outstanding Dylan Lades, breaking the line like he's done all season. Support everywhere, and it was an early happy birthday gift to Corbus Visa, who put the big leaps in as he stumbled his way over the line and put that buffer back in place for the Stormers. It was a welcome back gift to Wasaki Naholo, who dragged the Highlanders chasing the game back into it. Great break from Ash Dixon, found Rob Thompson, and Naholo showing he's not about to give the forwards an easy finish, and he did it himself, just flopping over the line 1 metre out. The Stormers, though, struck straight back, and they put it beyond doubt at this point. The Highlanders rushed defence, proving their undoing as Delendi split them like a fresh pineapple. Support was too many. John-Luc Duplessis again, one of many Stormers players right there to apply the finish, and that put it pretty much done and dusted. A late consolation try for Tokalahi, bulldozed over. Highlanders knew they had lost. There was no real celebration at all. 34-22. Highlanders always behind the 8 ball on this one. Oh. You're still there, Shane. You're still there.
Somehow.
You are still there. Goodness me. Highlanders Stormers. What did you think?
Well, I would have... Highlanders obviously would have probably wanted to take something out of that game in Cape Town to keep pushing along their way through that New Zealand conference to give them a bit of a boost there, and because they've played some good rugby at times and they've been scrappy in others. They've been very inconsistent. So I'm a bit disappointed that they couldn't, to be honest, they can get something out of it. But the Stormers played some really entertaining rugby, and they showed when they play good rugby, they get good results out of them. And 4 tries to 3. You've got to remember there, Steve. Penalty goals were a very useful tool for the Stormers, which gave them that 12-point margin if you look at it in reality. So, look, I think the sides were a lot closer than what the scoreboard suggested. It was the Stormers that were no doubt the better side. So, a bit of thinking work to do for the Highlanders for next week.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a disaster tour for them, hasn't it? They'll be coming back, and they've got a little bit of ground to make up to on their table. They're fleetingly close to the Chiefs and the Bulls, who are right behind them. So they won't want to let that third place slip for their season, or it will be deemed a disaster, pretty much. Anyone finishing behind the Blues, surely that's got to be deemed a disaster. We will move on, though. Our final game of the season, the Sharks versus the Lions. And you'll probably go and pretty easily say this was the game of the weekend. It started off in pretty humorous circumstances as well. Curran Bosch hitting probably scud of the season, an early penalty, handy spot just to the left of the uprights, and he absolutely muffed it straight into the crowd. I've never seen such a terrible kick from such a great goal kicker. He did make up for it, though, a few minutes later, intercepting an inside pass from Yankees, this time it's Elton Yankees, and he thrilled the crowd with his speed, bursting over 60 metres to open the scorers, and that settled the nerves for poor little Kerwin. The Sharks got the line-out maul going very quickly after Dan de Pree with his 7th Super Rugby try, and the Sharks were quickly in control. Bosch, confident here, nailing it from the sideline. How one little play can make your confidence all the world of difference. It took the Lions half an hour to open their account, some juggle work from Levis, and the highlight, there was a highlight of it, but it seemed to have, what we missed from Mapu this season is what got them their first try. It was a big charging, strong play run from the Lions centre, and he bulldozed his way over, much like we used to see from him a couple of seasons ago. We went to the break, 2 tries to 1, 14 points to 7. The Sharks in control at half-time. Now, if you want to see some razzle-dazzle rugby, as Justin Marshall would say, check out the Sharks right off the second half whistle. Fussy with a godly step to describe it, and the offload and attempted Superman dive from Nkosi in the corner absolutely wowed the stadium. We were oohing and ahhing through that whole passage of play. Sadly, he had a foot in touch and it was disallowed, but it was a fantastic way to start the second half. But don't go anywhere, because the Lions said that we can do something special as well. A sweeping backline play set Deante scorching down the left-hand wing, supported by his fellow winger, Skosan, who was way out of position. And then, of course, Mapu, who set it up 5 minutes short, and the big man Cole Brink come charging in, and he finished the play untouched to put the scores tied at 14-all. It was well and truly game on. Then the decisive moment of the match, and it was none other than high jump champion Marcus Mapimpi. Is he? Hopefully he is, because he leaped like a fish out of water to grab the ball. It was attempted to be thrown over his head on his own 22, and then he is gone. He looks up and he sees green grass in front of it, and on go the skate shoes, and he is out of here. Goodbye, good night. Marcus is gone all the way home. This kid's rapid, and he went a long way, 80 metres, to put what was really, for me, the telling play in this match. Yankees and Bosch exchanged penalties for the remaining time, but Mapimpi's not only wonderful finish from that intercept, but also his try-saving defence in that final 10 minutes, definitely the markers for a great Sharks win here, 27-17. Chance for the Lions to pull that one back, which would have been a great win for them, but the Sharks just had that little bit of something special, didn't they?
Yes, and it's good to see a lot of Springboks in those two sides start to say, I want that green jumper for the World Cup and the Rugby Championship before that. So, and I think that they did. I think that there was a very big matchup there between the two tens. And it was a delight to watch two masters go at it. So, look, the Sharkies will be happy with that. Closing the game out, getting a 10-point win. Not even a bonus point there for the Lions, so they've been very wayward this year. They haven't been at their best compared to the last 3 years where they've made back-to-back grand finals and even a minor premiership there. They can kiss that goodbye. They got to find their roar again, and they've only got 3 weeks to do that. And not just a roar, but I think it's got to be a little bit louder than Simba's roar from the Lion King, if that makes sense. They've got a lot of work to do. And the Sharkies, well, I think they'll be right. I think, again, they're a consistent side that makes playoffs every year. They're judged by that. So I think the Sharkies could be top 4 this year. Really do. I think they're putting it.
Well, there we have it. There's a statement of the round. Sharks be top 4, and I mean they're going pretty well, but no one in their South African conference really is out of it, are they? Like I said before, 6 points from first to last. who knows what's going to happen. And the way that conference has gone, it's still a lottery, a flip of the coin. So who's going to go through there? So they cap off a very good round, an exciting match to finish. And the Sharks just getting that one over the line, and they stay in second in South Africa. And that is us for the review of round 15 of Super Rugby. Thanks, Shane, for joining us again. And I'll chuck all the pressure back to Paul to close us out. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you, Shane and Steve, for taking us through all the games from last weekend. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below. Hit that red thing and the old bell, get your bell on, as they say, so you don't miss out on any of the shows. As you've heard, there's lots of shows coming this week, and then we'll be coming live to you from the Zone Sports Bar as well for the Chiefs versus the Crusaders. You can come and join us and say hello and meet me in the flesh down there. So if you're in Hamilton, do pop on down. It'll be much more fun than watching it on your own in the living room. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'm back tomorrow night with the Hash Rugby chat, where, yes, we will talk about Mr. Phil Kearns. And, he's a bit of a prat, isn't he? Let's be honest.